What good is time and expense billing software if you don't have a robust billing area to use? BillQuick, of course, provides this. Looking at QuickBooks, for example, you do have the ability to customize your template, and there's a fair amount you can do with that. But when you get into very specific service areas like architects and CPAs might have the need for, there's not enough there, and BillQuick fills that gap. You have actually very detailed choices from among 100 different invoice templates that you can use so that you can get the layout you need and present the information that you need to present to your client when you're sending them a bill. The ultimate objective is very simple. You want to make sure they understand what they're being billed for, and you want to head off any questions at the pass, because the last thing you want to do is have to invest time and resources into answering your client's questions about what was on their invoice. Billing, and specifically time and expense billing, is one of the main reasons why BillQuick exists. Of course, as you've already seen now, it does a lot more than that. But time and expense billing was really the main reason why BillQuick was born. It was created to help simplify that process and help make it so that you don't have to enter information, more than once. And that's been the problem historically, is you have one person submitting information and then somebody else gets that and then they have to enter it again into the accounting system, and it lends itself to errors, and it's also just inefficient. It should only have to be entered once, especially with the technology that's available to us today. So now we're going to get into showing you the reason behind why BillQuick was born and the core of why it's here, in addition to the project management aspect. So as we pointed out in the written portion, you're going to want to start here on the View menu when it comes time to get into the billing process, really. And I wanted to show you the service fee schedule and the expense fee schedule. So let's open up both of these screens. There's not a whole lot to show you here, but I just want you to see it so that you're not overwhelmed by it or just unfamiliar with it when your time comes to take a look at this. Now, as you can see, it's pretty straightforward. I can use a preset fee schedule, or I can create a new one by clicking New, or I can grab the schedule based on a budget. So any of these are options. If I go to create a new schedule, I can name it, give it a description, I can base it on an existing fee schedule, and the bottom line is, as I'm creating these fee schedules, it's pretty straightforward. I'm going to choose an employee, and for that, or I can choose an employee group. These are sort of mutually exclusive. So if I choose a group, it's going to blank out the employee once I tab out of it. So you can choose an employee or an employee group. Obviously, it wouldn't make sense to do both. Same with activity or activity group. So we can set up these groups obviously in another screen in BillQuick. So that an employee group obviously is a group of employees. I might want to have all my architects or staff level architects in one group, and their billing rates and cost rates may be exactly the same. So that's the idea behind the groups. We don't really cover this in this course, but it's there, and you should be aware of it since it obviously comes up in this screen. And the same with the activity and the activity group. So either I can set up my schedule, my fee schedule for this based on a specific activity, or I can base it on a group of activities that might be part of the somehow related, like all my admin activities or all my computer related activities and so on. Beyond that, it's just establishing what the bill rate will be and what the cost rate will be for this particular line item, for this particular combination of employee or employee group and activity or activity group. It's really that simple. The expense fee schedule is not much different. Again, I'm going to have an employee or an employee group. In this case, it's an expense ID or an expense group, right? And then I can, again, have my cost. And this time we're going to look at a markup percentage on that cost to come up with the amount. And of course, if it's something that's taxable, I can establish that here as well. So not rocket science, nothing too complicated there. Let's go look at the project billing area. If I go into project information, and we've already seen the screen, so for any project I come over here to the billing tab, and here's where I want you to pay careful attention because there's a lot in here that obviously has to do with billing. First of all, if I have a fixed fee project and there's going to be a recurring bill, let's say, each month for the same amount, I can establish that here. I can establish how much retainage there is, and for that matter, I can establish what the retainer amount is. In dollar form as opposed to percentage. Here's where, of course, I can assign my fee schedule, service fee schedule, expense fee schedule. If I have an estimate that I've created, I can establish what that is here, and I can assign a budget to the project over here as well. We have delayed fee schedules, and then from that you can establish what the trigger is and what the amount is for that. We have payment terms, of course, and as you may well have gathered, BillQuick has multiple currencies, so we can establish what the project's currency is in case we're dealing with something that's overseas. Over here, we can establish that by default, all invoices for this project will be sent as a joint invoice. What does that mean? Particularly in the case of architects, I might have multiple phases. So checking this off means that BillQuick will assume when it comes time to bill that it will automatically consolidate all the billing for all the phases into a single invoice. A lot of times clients want that. They don't want to get 3 different bills because there's 3 different phases. And of course, here we can establish that we want to email invoices. And then there's the automatic billing, which we can set up. And invoice templates, I want to show you what this looks like, because this is kind of one of the really compelling aspects of BillQuick, is that if you compare it to QuickBooks, QuickBooks lets you customize the template, and there's limited capabilities there. Here, you can customize, but you almost don't need to. They have so many choices, and you can select an example of one so you can see what it looks like. So these are cost plus invoices. These are fixed. So for an accounting firm, right, accountant's custom billing period, and so on. So, and look how nice they look. They look very professional. So I encourage you to go through this and take the time, if you're using this for your own practice or if you're using it for a client, and review this with the client and decide what the client likes, because that's where I know I've gotten hung up with a lot of clients, particularly my architect clients, where, and here's a phased invoice, speaking of the architect clients, where the architects are very particular about how they want the information laid out. Typically, in my experience, they want to be able to show, of course, what the billing is that we're sending to them now, but also the bigger picture project stuff. What's the contract total? What's been billed to date? What are we billing here? And what remains to be billed based on that? And then, as you can see here, a detail on the reimbursable expenses. And then some want this detail and some don't want the detail. They just want one line item for reimbursed expenses. So look what you have here, invoice summarized with expenses, and then invoice with expenses, and then a phased invoice with expenses, and then just a plain phased invoice, and a phased void invoice. So you have a lot of templates to choose from here. Once you've established which invoices you like for your purposes, and again, this is just an index, then what you're going to want to do is come up here where it says Assigned Invoice Templates and drop that down. And you can choose from among the templates. So of course you might want to go to a phased invoice, select it, and then over here Assign Selected. So this way your standard invoice will be this phased invoice. And then you can choose a different template in cases where you're doing a joint invoice, a manual invoice, and of course you can use a different template for a statement. So this is how this screen works, and it's definitely worth spending some time in here, because as you can see, you can get some really professional looking invoices with the detail nicely laid out. So your client's customers, assuming you're using this for a client, are going to be ecstatic because they're going to get a bill that they understand. They're going to get a bill that explains to them very clearly what they're paying for and where we're at with it, right? Because we're talking about billing for very potentially complex projects that have a lot of information and a lot of detail that needs to be described well, so that it's very clear. Because the bottom line is, when I send an invoice out, I want to make sure I get paid. And the more clear the information is that's on the invoice in terms of what they're being charged for and what stage the project is at, which of course stands as the proof of why they're being charged what they're being charged on this invoice, the clearer that is, the more likely they're going to be to just pay it. If they're not clear, if it's not clear to them when you're sending them an invoice what you're billing them for, then they're more likely to question it, and that's going to slow down the process, and that's going to delay you getting paid on the project. So to me, that's one of the most important things when it comes to sending an invoice out, is getting paid. And we want to make sure that we can do everything in our power to make it as easy as possible for the recipient of our invoice to understand very clearly what they're being billed for and why the amount is what it is, so that they don't have to think twice. They can just put it in their system, do the entry, and send a check off as soon as possible. Now, let's take a look and see what the next thing is. Because now that we've seen the invoice templates and we understand the project billing area and we've looked at the fee schedules, we want to take a look at billing schedules, because this is another thing you can do when it comes to billing your clients or billing your clients' clients. So over here under Billing Create Invoices, we'll have billing schedules. And here it's nice. You can see they show you the whole contract amount. In the screenshot that I put in the written portion, this was blocked off from the drop down, but this is what it looks like. And what's nice about this, of course, is I can set up, if I have a fixed contract that I'm billing, then I can create my billing schedule based on that. And of course, it shows me the total so that I can make sure that my total amount comes up to the right total and doesn't exceed what the contract amount is. I'd look kind of foolish if I overbilled my client. So this is pretty straightforward. Bill number 1, what's the amount? Is it a retainer, the net bill, and so on? Or is there retainage being taken out, and then the net? And then, of course, you'll add in however many line items you need to in order to achieve the entire billing schedule and get that laid out. So again, that's pretty straightforward. Now let's go to the time and expense review. Under time and expenses, we're going to come here to review time and expenses. And as you'll see, you can choose how you want to look at this in a number of different ways. So I can look at it for all employees and vendors, or I can look at only employees, or only vendors, or only a certain employee group, and so on. There's a lot of different ways I can review the expenses. The other important thing to notice is here where it says active filters, notice I've got 3 filters here. One is that I'm seeing approved only, unbilled only, and billable only, right? Because if it's not billable, I don't really care to review it. Now, the thing I might want to change in a case like this is I may be reviewing unapproved time and billing and expenses to see what I want to approve before I go to do my billing. So I might want to flip this and uncheck approved only and check off unapproved only. And that way I get my screen and I can select any number of items. One of the cool tools that BillQuick provides, by the way, is let's say I can do a reverse select. So let's say there's just a few that I know I don't care about. So I can select these. I can select just a few. Or let's say this range, and then do a reverse select. And it selects everything else. So that's a really cool feature that BillQuick offers that I've not seen and would love to have in many other applications that I use. So I can select all of these. I can even say select all, and I can simply approve it. So now we've got everything approved. And that's essentially how you do it. Of course, you want to pay attention to the criteria that I've got established here. I've got this pretty much showing absolutely everything for all of time and every single, in this case, vendor. I might want to do it by project, right? So I select project, click refresh, and then I do all projects and refresh. And then now I've just approved everything, so I need to switch that. And check that off. And now I've got some stuff in here to look at. But this is how you review time and expenses. You review this stuff, you question it, you see, does it make sense? Am I seeing stuff I don't expect to see here? Am I not seeing stuff I do expect to see here? So from the screen, you can easily drill around and review your time and expenses and decide what's ready to be billed and what isn't. Maybe you decide, oh, this shouldn't be billable, and you uncheck it. Next, once we're done reviewing expenses and making sure that we've got everything approved that we want to be approved, well, then we're ready to actually do the billing review. Possibly the most compelling area of BillQuick in terms of billing is the billing review screen. As you've already seen, BillQuick provides us with a robust infrastructure in order to gather information about the time and expenses that have been incurred in connection with a project. In the billing area, you get the opportunity to review that information before sending the bill. You can send multiple bills out to multiple clients at the same time by simply selecting what's going to be billed, and BillQuick has the intelligence to be able to take that information, distribute it amongst the projects to the invoices, and send it out to the clients in one fell swoop. Your whole billing process gets so much more efficient. We're going to show you what this looks like in this lesson, which is the last thing we do really before we're ready to actually produce invoices. So we go over to billing, create invoices, and you'll see billing review. And once I click on that, again, I can view it by project. I can say show me billing for all projects. And as I mentioned in the written part, what you choose here is going to have a lot to do with who's the one doing the billing, right? If I'm a project manager, and in my particular case, the project manager does the billing for the project, then I'm probably going to want to view it by project. And I'm going to say no to this. This comes up if there are unapproved records in either time or expenses that fit within the date range that we're looking at. Of course, the period is all, so in this case, if there's anything out there at all, it's going to come up. If there's anything unapproved that falls in the timeline that I'm looking at, this is going to come up to ask me if I want to review the unapproved time and expense records. I'm going to say no. And I can say view by project manager. So I can say, you know, I only want to see, if I'm Curtis James, I only want to see my projects. So I can select that, and then again that dialog comes up. So Curtis is working on, it looks like just, well, at least of the projects Curtis is working on, there's only one that's got stuff ready to be built. And for that matter, if I'm just a billing manager, where that's, my company structured so that, there's a billing manager who does all the billing. The project managers then are probably the one who approve the time and expenses for their particular projects. And then the billing manager comes in and does this actual review. So let's say we want to look at it by project, because I just want to see for all projects, what am I ready to bill? And I can look at this for all projects or a specific one. And then I've got everything here that I need to see. Now, I mentioned in the written portion that you can do joint invoices. So here's a good example of where that would come into play. So I have main 1, 2, and 3. So this is the same project with 3 different phases, right? So I can actually group them by saying 1, 1, 1. All I have to do is assign the same thing to all 3 of them, and it will bill them as a single invoice. That's what lets it know that I'm doing a joint invoice here. Otherwise, each line item here is going, well, each project here is going to have its own invoice. In other words, if there's a distinction like this and I don't do the joint invoice thing, then this is going to produce 3 separate invoices, 1 for each phase, because there's a distinction. Whereas if I have several line items for the same project, and let's sort this by project ID really quick to see if we have an example of such a thing, then it would be all on one invoice. So as long as I have information here that's for the same, then it's going to come out on one invoice. Now, of course, over here is where I check off what I want to bill. Right? And notice as I check it off, it lets me see that it's going to be, invoice number 1205, 1206, and 1207, and so on. So let's just keep going and watch what happens when I get down to my joint invoices. And of course, I'm a big fan of keyboard shortcuts, so down arrow, space bar to select. Now let's see what happens. Oh my God, look at that. It's so smart. It knows that I want these 3 on the same invoice. So you get to confirm it, in other words, that this is actually going to go all on the same invoice. So let's say this is it. Let's say this is everything that I need to bill. This actually is everything that shows up in the screen, nonetheless. I go to process here, and I have 2 choices. I can process final or process as a draft. Process as a draft is pretty straightforward. This is what I do if I want to take a look at it before I make it final and then send it off to the client. And of course, the third choice is I can process as final and print it. So let's just say I process as a draft. So I'm going to let it process all these invoices. And now, of course, everything goes away from this screen. And if I go to invoice review, then right now nothing shows up. So I need to check off here where it says draft invoice and refresh. And here they all are. And you can see the invoice numbers here. So I can, again, review it. And I can, let's say, double-click this. And it's going to give me a view into what this invoice is going to look like. So this way I can double-check things before I'm ready. And then, of course, what I can do is, let's go to select everything. And I can say process invoice. Now, so click to process selected draft invoices. So this is going to make them final. Boom. So then I uncheck this and refresh. And here's all my final invoices that I just processed. Everything's here. And of course, finally what I can do is I can send these. Well, I can send it to QuickBooks, right? And then I can email. And I can email a client, I can email a client manager, I can email a project manager, or other. So again, if I say select all, email, client, it says I can email only 10 invoices at a time. So I've got to do it 10 invoices at a time. But you get the idea. This is how you can actually send out invoices in a batch rather than having to send out, and look what it does. It automatically chops the list down to the first 10. So then it confirms you've selected multiple invoices. Do you want to attach invoices of the same client in a single email? So look at that. If I say no, it'll send each one in a separate email. But of course, at least in my case, I'm going to pretty much say yes always to something like that. And you can say yes, and you can email the invoices out to your clients. And notice what it does is it creates this nice little screen where I can go in and actually edit the body of the invoice. It's incrementing attachments, and it's going to compose the email or allow me to do that. So notice what it's doing is it's opening up multiple tabs so that each email is getting prepared so that I can send out the invoices. But I'll still get to review that email. So if you've ever used QuickBooks to send invoices out, you know that you don't really get this opportunity to really customize what the email does and what it looks like. You have limited availability of fields to change. And that's pretty much it. So if I go select across the board here, I can go into this and I can look at the attachments, and I can of course establish who it's going to, and then when I'm ready I can simply click send. And that, my friends, completes the billing process. You've seen how to review everything, you've seen where to go, you've seen how to establish which templates you want to use for invoicing purposes, you've seen how to set up your fee schedules and assign those to the projects. All of that has been covered. So, of course, if you have any questions, please visit our answers forum, which is available to registered students of schoolofbookkeeping.com. If you're not a registered student and you'd like to take advantage of that, please sign up for schoolofbookkeeping.com today. And then, of course, you can ask all the questions you want in our answers forum. As always, I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day. And don't leave, the course is not over yet. We have one more section to review, which is going to show you how to integrate all of this with QuickBooks. We'll see you in the next section. So now we've seen a lot of the benefits that BillQuick can provide in terms of the robust infrastructure around the billing process itself, and everything we showed you leading up to that in terms of the time and expense entry and, of course, the project management at large. Now that we have this information and we understand the billing, there might be one more question lingering, especially since we mentioned it in the intro to the course, which is how do I get this stuff into QuickBooks from BillQuick? And BillQuick, as you probably well know by now, does integrate deeply with QuickBooks. In the final lesson in this course, we're going to show you exactly how that integration works, and I think you're going to be pleased when you see just how easy it is to accomplish.